Today's show is brought to you by BarkBox.com. Get one free extra month of BarkBox at getbarkbox.com/amps.
Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. Oh. How are you, man? How you doing? How you doing?
Well, you know how we always talk about technology and how much we love it. And I'm doing the air quotes, and it's very sarcastic at this moment. I've been dealing with a mic. My day job, I have to talk to people that, you know, English is sometimes their third language, maybe.
Okay.
And, you know, nothing against that, but it does slow things up when you're trying to understand what they're trying to tell you and vice versa. But I've been dealing with the Microsoft issue for like 2.5 months. It's really starting to... It's starting to take its toll on me.
From what you're from what you're telling me, you know, it's like it's technology, and you're speaking with the technology experts who, for some reason, don't fully understand or comprehend or know how to manipulate the technology.
Drawing a picture with words is sometimes a very difficult thing, and you don't know the person on the other end and what their capabilities are or how their thinking process is, right?
Yeah, right.
So you're trying to. So then then we do, and I know this is a guitar show. But, you know, you get into this mode where they're like remoted into your machine, and you're trying to drive this car, and it really beats you up, man. And I'm kind of I feel like I did 10 rounds with an MMA fighter. And I'm ready to throw in the towel.
Now it's unwind time. It's podcast unwind.
You know what?
Time
and it is. And guess what? Our fans are unwinding. We've gotten some great emails. I don't know if you saw the one from the guy from the cable company. Boy, that one was awesome. Because he went
not cable as an entertainment, cable as an instrument.
Yes, he went into great detail, broke down our show that we had with Tsunami Cables, answered a lot of questions. I'm actually going to try to get him on the show because this guy is like an encyclopedia of information on this. So we might be able to get some cool answers and maybe a cool story.
He knows the wires.
He knows the wires. That's for sure.
There you go.
You know, just some of the fans, somebody asked me the other day if we could do a 6-hour show. I said at hour 2, somebody would hang themselves after hearing my voice. I said, so we can't do a 6-hour show.
It's a 6-hour show. That's really a 6-hour show.
Well, that's a super fan right there, you know?
That is a super fan.
There you go. You know, hey, look, I love the fact
as long as we can pencil in restroom breaks. You know,
let's go to dinner.
6 hours. Probably have to have lunch or dinner in there somewhere. So
So that was a very nice compliment. I mean, he was joking, of course, but I said 6 hours. Okay, but you guys have really been. Our numbers have reflected. We can't thank you enough. And when you go out to our page, ampsandaxes.com or ampsandaxescast.com. You can get there both ways. Give some love, please. Just give some love to our sponsors on the right-hand side, right by the show. There's a lot of stuff out there. I'm not going to go into detail, but, Amazon's one of our big ones. Audible's another big one. You guys go there, check out that stuff. You click on that stuff, and you do your thing, and they kick over to us, man. It's like magic.
They would appreciate a little bit of your business, and we would appreciate you giving them the business.
And it helps this thing keep going down the road. It keeps the bills at a minimum because it does come out of our pocket, and
keeps the petrol in the fuel reserves.
And that is correct. So once again, we cannot do it without you guys.
That's right. Spread the word. Tell everybody, friends, relatives, anybody you can think, coworkers. I mean, there's got to be other people that that are interested in the same things that you're interested in. So help us along and spread the word.
Yeah, man. And when you do, like we always say, because, hey, we like to think we're giving you stuff that nobody else is giving you, let them know that you heard it here first.
Right. And hopefully we're going to give you another first today. You may or may not have heard of this gentleman. Fantastic guitar player. There have been quotes about him like this would be Eric Clapton if Eric Clapton played jazz, or, he's been compared to Jeff Beck at times, things like that. But he is in the let's put it under the large umbrella of the jazz world. So we're going to take a pause for the cause and be right back with our guest of the week, guitarist Mr. Denny Jiosa.
For our listeners only, BarkBox is offering an opportunity to receive 1 free extra month. What is BarkBox? BarkBox delivers 4 to 6 natural treats and toys curated around a surprise theme each month for your dog. All edibles are made in the USA or Canada, and 100% of the products are tested on their own animals. When you go to order, tell them how big your dog is. Then choose a plan. 1, 6, or 12 months plans are available, and you can cancel at any time. Bark boxes are shipped free on the 15th of each month. And if your dog does not like something in the box, we'll send you something they'll love for free, because they're all about dog happiness. So to receive 1 month free, go to getbarkbox.com/amps. Again, that's getbarkbox.com/amps to receive an extra month of BarkBox for free.
Hey, this is TJ Scarlett from Honeyjack and Rut Bustin' Guitar, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
All right, and we are back as promised with our guest of the week. We'll call it what he calls it, contemporary jazz artist, Denny Jiosa. Denny, how are you?
I'm doing just fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time to be on with us. We've much appreciated.
Yeah.
You're in Nashville, I guess, right?
I am in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's blazing hot here today. So,
yeah, welcome to summer. We had that conversation. No more spring.
Yeah, we had.
It changes quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
We had somewhere between 2 hours and 2 days worth of spring. I'm not sure, and then that was about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what? I'd love the fact that the jazz guys have the same kind of nightmare that all the metal guys have. Because there's 85 different versions of metal. Yeah. And now we have the contemporary jazz thing. I'm sure there's fusion jazz. There's I like that because then it keeps everybody confused just enough.
There you go. Okay. I can appreciate that statement. It certainly does.
Because when you're trying to describe your band, you just want to go, yeah, we're jazz, but then jazz gets looked at, on a different level because you don't know where you're hitting their head, right? You don't know if they know the stuff or they don't know it. So you got to kind of go this other way. And then you're really into the weeds sometimes with whoever you're talking to.
Well, the funny thing is that people will, I call it a 4-letter word for one thing. It's like a lot of people think you're swearing when you say that word, I think. So, but typically I think most people go to bebop, and I've heard people go, are these guys all playing a different song, or what is this? And it's so they immediately they don't understand it, they don't like it. I happen to like it all pretty much, but it does get very confusing.
They go, so you play the banjo?
It's the jazz Joe. That's a good one. I was just going to say I want to do something so different that I'm the only one in that category in the record store. I want it so micro segregated.
There you
that
go.
There's just me. And then you have to be at the top of your category at that point.
And get into what? What did you say? You want to get it into what?
Just like a micro category where I'm the only one.
No, I'm trying to get you to say the word record store.
Record.
What exactly is that?
Yeah. You are correct, sir. I'm old.
Well, we did have one guy that did that, Jeff. His name was Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
Because you really couldn't put a title on that. It was like spaceship music or whatever.
Yeah. I do want to get in the record store, Denny. I want to be in the one and only Tower Records that's left in Japan.
Is that where it is? I played the one in New York, and I've played quite a few towers, and I didn't think there was any left. There's one in Japan, huh?
Yes.
Which is a
it's
ton
the
of
biggest
irony.
One. It's the biggest one because it's the only one, but it has been the biggest one, So, we've gotten already off track, according to the way the show paces. So
we're having fun, though, right? So
we're going to have fun the whole time. Mark my word. But I just want to take it back a little bit and start where we usually start the show. And I'd like to take our guests in a trip in the Wayback Machine and find out where Mr. Denny Jiosa was born and raised and what got you into this wonderful world of music. So give us a little Denny history.
Wow. Okay, I'll try to not make it too long. To be honest with you, Jeff, I actually went to my mother and said, I want to put a band together. I was 6 years old, if you can believe that.
Whoa.
And I remember her looking at me going, you might want to learn to play an instrument first. And, I said, okay, that's a good idea. So I started at 7, I started playing guitar, and I don't want to tell you how many years that's been, but it's a lot of years. So,
where were you born and raised?
Yeah, I was born and raised in a little town called Huntington, Indiana. It's up by the Fort Wayne area.
Okay.
There wasn't a lot of, for some reason, guys, I was attracted to instrumental and jazz music at a very young age. I mean, I was like writing instrumental, literally writing out the notation at 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
I was weird.
Was there schooling involved before that, like musical schooling involved?
No, man. Well, I took a few lessons. I was studying with the local guys around there, and there was only one guy that really knew anything about jazz, and he was working with me a little bit, but I would read books and just try to figure out triads and all that. And I was actually writing it out like that, in triads. So it was crazy. I think I still have that sheet music somewhere.
So what made you go to your mom and say, I want to start a band? Like what sparked that? What sparked your interest?
I guess the Beatles, and my sister was constantly playing cool records around the house and 45s, like the Hollies and that stuff, riding around on a carousel and all that stuff, and I don't know. I just love the sound of the guitars, and love the music. So it was never really about I want to be a rock star thing. It's just, I want to play music.
Okay. Well, that's a more wholesome and noble avenue towards it, other than, if I play music, I'll get the chicks, which we've had plenty of.
Well, there was that. Yeah. But
right. Of course, there's always a little bit of that. So when did you get your first guitar? What was it?
Well, Dad had an old acoustic sitting around the house, that the action was about 6 inches off the neck, and
of course,
and painful. And of course, I wanted an electric guitar, and I don't know if you guys remember a store called W.T. Grant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we had a Grant's in our little town and up at the shopping center, and I found an electric and an amp. And if I recall, it was like $29.95 for both.
Wow.
It was a little expensive, but and believe it or not, guys, I mean, I wish this was video. I still have that guitar.
Damn.
Really?
I still have that guitar. It's in the closet over here. I hung on to it all these years.
That is wild.
Isn't it crazy?
Great. That's great.
Well, what's crazier? That that you realized early on how douchey singers are. Because
because he was
instrumental.
That's funny. Oh my God.
I mean, some of us, it takes us years to figure it out, going, what the hell is wrong with this band? And then you got to go, oh, it's the guy that carries in the microphone. And you had it at 12. I mean, that's a win. You won right away.
You know, I had my first band put together at 14, and we performed. I've got that all on cassette, too, the first performance. And we did like 3 of my instrumental songs I had written at 14 years old.
Wow.
So,
That is
kind
awesome.
of weird. It's awesome, though, too. Yeah, it is.
You know, and after they did the 3 songs, the singer had a breakdown, and you know, he's not wanted anymore. You know, he's in therapy still.
Hey, I
Right,
figured
take your band and your PA and get out of here.
I figured a way that we can make more money and not have to deal with him.
That's hilarious. Man, so you got the guitar, you've got the cassette tape. Wow, that's
That's pretty.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea? Because I mean, we all know, you know, the Sears and Roebuck guitar and amp stories and everything, and the Monkey Wards, but the Grant. Do you have any idea who made the guitars and amps that they sold?
No, I don't. I think it just says it's got a little silver Japan sticker on the back of it. It's still there. So,
wow,
That is just crazy.
cool. I don't know, Mick, that we've ever had, or even I've ever had, you know, somebody that said they bought their first guitar and amp at Grant.
yeah.
That's wow.
No, and that I don't even know it. I mean, that
You don't know the store?
I don't know the store.
It was kind of like a Montgomery Ward or
Okay.
or what we have today, like a Target back in the day. It was kind of the incarnation of that type store, that department store.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. If I remember correctly, because I'm pretty sure we had them up in Jersey as well, which is where I'm from, and I mean, wasn't it kind of a combination of that and maybe like a Woolworths kind of?
I remember that.
I guess we had Woolworths too. You know.
Yeah.
Two Guys was another one. I don't know if that was local or what, but I remember that store.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, so see, some of this might be regional. You never know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It is.
But, you know, there was a lot of those department stores, of course.
Well, that's like, you know, you either walk into a Denny's or a Shoney's, you know, it's all regional stuff. It's all the same.
Yeah.
But, you know, we had Two Guys as well up there. So, okay, so you had your band together and record. You were already writing.
Yes, sir.
Instrumentals.
Yeah.
At would you say 12?
At 12, yeah.
Wow.
Not anything you'd really want to hear, I'm sure, but I was certainly in that learning process, you know. I was setting up a studio, guys, if you want to call it that, quote unquote. You know, I had a little Sony line mixer and a 4-track Sony machine that was not syncable. You know what I mean? It was just that 4-track audio that you weren't supposed to be able to. And I had it set up in my parents' basement. We did some recording on 7.5 IPS, you know, 4-inch tape. And I figured out how to bounce. I would cut a track and then I'd, you know, add sound on sound by bouncing to the next track. And
good God.
Rigging it up.
Yeah. Wow.
I still have all those reel-to-reels out. I'm sure they're deteriorated by now, not good. But I would love to find a machine and see if I could at least, you know, get one more play out of them.
Yeah, bake them and
bake them. Yeah.
Yeah. I might try to do that one day.
There's got to be somebody in the Nashville area that can do that for you. It is Music City.
A good friend of mine, in fact, that just mastered my new record. They do that at their mastering facility at
cool.
Independent Mastering. So yeah,
cool.
There's a couple guys there that should know what's going on.
Yeah. Where did it go from there? Where did it go from your 12-year-old band and writing instrumentals? What was the next step?
I had the high school band, and we were playing all over regionally, and then like everybody, you feel like you're a little discouraged and scared about trying to make a career out of this stuff, you know. So I went to college for a year in Anderson, Indiana, to study engineering and production. And it was the only school anywhere that I could find that offered anything like that. So I was hanging out in Anderson, Indiana at the Gaither. I don't know if you guys know who the Gaithers are.
No.
The Christian quartet. It's a singing quartet. But he has a huge studio in that area. So I was hanging out at the studio learning how to produce and engineer and all that. I did that for about a year. Then I went to Purdue Extension for a year. And then I went on the road. I couldn't take it anymore. And I was traveling with a guy named Troy Shondell, who had a #1 hit in '63. And we were playing 50s and 60s revival shows with the Coasters and the Belmonts and Bo Diddley and all this stuff.
Good
and
God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I did that for a couple of years, and then I moved to L.A. and went to GIT and graduated from there and stayed in L.A. about 3 years and then moved to Nashville. And the funny thing, you want me to keep going?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, guys, L.A., I loved the education I got. I mean, I was getting this, everybody was, Joe Pass was coming in and Howard Roberts was still alive. And it just was massive, the people that were there. Joe DiOrio, of course, Larry Carlton was coming in and Robin Ford. And it was awesome. You're surrounded by these guys. And my private instructor was Frank Gambale.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you got the sweep picking lesson down.
Man, did I ever. And I got that on cassette, too. I need to convert these cassettes. But
Right.
So I stayed out there and did all kinds of stuff to pay the bills, playing gigs and acting and all kinds of things. And then had enough of that and moved to Nashville. And this is where it really gets crazy, guys. I just felt like I needed to come to Nashville because I wasn't happy there. So I move here, I get a gig playing for an act, and then also managing a studio down on Music Row. So I ended up managing and engineering at the studio. And about a year after I started that gig, I'm on the 8th floor of the United Artists Tower, out of 9 floors, and all these offices. So think about all I'm about to tell you here. Out of 9 floors, a guy moves into the office next to me that is a radio promoter for jazz radio. What are the odds?
Right.
So I mean,
all the floors in all the buildings.
Honestly, if he'd been one floor up or down, I may have never met the guy, right? So His name is Michael Morick, and he had a promotions company, and we'd stand around and have coffee in the mornings at the studio and everything, and I never told him I even played. And so one day I took a cassette tape in and gave to him, and didn't tell him it was me, and the next day he comes storming in my office going, "Who is this?" And I said, "It's me." And he goes, "No, really, who is this?" I said, "No, Michael, it's me." And he says, "Get me 2 more songs like this, and I'll get you a record deal." And sure enough, in 3 months, I had 2 deals on the table, and those were out of New York. So
wow,
that's kind of what got the ball rolling.
And when was this?
Oh, this was 19. Oh boy, you're dating me now, man.
It's okay.
Let me see, 94, 93, 94 in that range.
Okay.
Now, you know what's funny, right, is that the extent of the conversation, if it went like this, where he went, "This is you playing on it," and you would have went, "Yeah," and he would have went, "Didn't I see you for half an hour trying to find the piece of paper that was jammed in the copier?"
Well, nobody says a great guitar player needs to know how to fix a copy machine.
That's right. You got to excel at the things you know. Like Paul Gilbert didn't know that there's an actual thing that holds the gas nozzle open when you put it in your car. He thought you had to buy a special car for that. So, hey, it's okay.
That was hilarious. So Denny, at this point, like, what kind of gear were you playing? What were you playing when you were actually out with your first band? What did your gear, evolve to at that point?
Well, I had I couldn't wait, guys. I saved all my, when I was in high school, saved all my mowing yard money, and part-time job money, and bought my first Les Paul Deluxe. And, that's after I'd gone through, Grants and Montgomery Ward and an Electra Les Paul copy, and then I finally got my real Les Paul, which that's also sitting right here in front of me right now, and that's a 76 Deluxe.
Wow.
It weighs about as much as my car. It's a heavy guitar. And I couldn't wait. About a year after I got that, I saved up and bought a Mesa Boogie.
Okay.
A Mark II-B. Yeah, that's the sound I wanted. And boy, was I in heaven with that rig. It was great. Before that, I had, I kind of went through the Fender Bassman, the Blackface. I wish I still had that, but, had some cool stuff. But I had an original Big Muff my son wishes I still had.
Yeah, man.
Probably worth $500 now. But
yeah.
So it was kind of just plug and play. I mean, the tone was so killer that that's about all the guy needed. And there weren't a lot of pedals. I do remember getting the Electro Harmonics newsletter in the mail. I couldn't wait to see the new catalog and see the new Small Stone or whatever, Big Muff or whatever they had out at the time. So,
absolutely. That's pretty cool. A Les Paul and a Mark II.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of that sound for that time.
Now, here's a little insight in mix world.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That exact guitar, was it a gold top?
No, it's a tobacco sunburst.
Okay. So that exact guitar, though, in a gold top, was the guitar that caught me at our buddy Joe Noto's Music Land when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
really?
that was one of those pinnacle things. You saw it and you went, "That's a real one." Because Gibson's, unless you were at some big music stores like near the city, and I grew up out, way out in the country there, you didn't see those guitars in stores. There was very far and few between.
Mm-hmm.
You had to go down the Chucks. You had to, it was a 60-mile drive,
right?
And my dad wasn't going to do that. So when Joe got that Deluxe in, I was taking guitar lessons, and I was just in awe of this thing. I was like, "Oh my God, that's the real deal."
It's a real Les Paul.
Yeah, and of course the price tag, because even though it was at that time of my life, I think it was right around 77, 78, something like that. And it was like, it should have had a price tag of $1 billion on it.
Right.
Because it was very expensive even then. Inflation, everything just chases.
Right.
It's the price of a Volkswagen.
Exactly. And but that was the guitar, and the one that I saw had the mini humbuckers. Now, is that what yours had?
That's what it is. It's a Deluxe.
Yeah.
That's what Deluxe has. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, man. That was the stuff.
Yeah. And I remember when I got the guitar, but especially when I bought the amp, I had to order it and wait 3 months for them to build it, because that's when it was all order only. They weren't in stores.
Right.
And I ordered it with the Anvil case and drove to Fort Wayne to pick it up when it flew in, and I spent $1,250 on that amp and case, and my parents thought I was crazy. That was a lot of dough. That would have bought a car.
Right. This is still when you were back in Indiana. You weren't even in LA yet. So
that's right. Yeah. This was like 76.
Wow.
Yep.
Very cool. But but I imagine you were probably one of the only people around with that rig.
There weren't a lot of guys with that rig actually in that area. That's true.
Right.
Yeah. And I still have the Boogie too.
Jesus.
Cool.
I know.
Cool.
I know. I'm crazy, but it still sounds great, guys. It does. My son used it for a while before he's got the bug bad. He went out and bought a Marshall stack. So he just turned 19. He's killing it. He's doing good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So okay, where did life take you during and after? What'd you say, GIT?
Yep, that's when I moved to Nashville and ended up with that record deal in New York, and that was a 5-album deal. And,
wow.
Yeah, and the first record I put out did pretty well. In fact, it was a small label called DA Music, and actually he had put out a box set of jazz standards because he owned a bunch of masters, old masters, and I'm talking like stuff with Coltrane and all this stuff, that unreleased stuff or whatever. And he put together these box sets and just sold like millions of copies of this through Sam's Club and Walmart.
Wow.
Yeah.
How cool is that? I mean, just to own like unreleased masters of things like that.
Yeah, man.
That's amazing.
And then he decided he would start this contemporary jazz, which they called it NAC then, New Adult Contemporary, back then. And he started this label, and it was called Blue Orchid. It was under the umbrella of DA Music, and I was one of his first artists. And when we did the first record, it did really well. I had like a top 10 song off of that first record, and they were like getting pretty excited, So the second album came out called Inner Voices, and I had a song on there called Lights the City that went to number 5.
Wow.
And I sold quite a few records. And I remember asking them, okay, so how many records do you think? Because, it's your first record deal and you're all excited and you ask all kinds of things. And I'm saying, in this format, because it's not pop or country, what's a success? And they said, well, if we sell 3,000-4,000 copies, we're going to be really happy. And I went, what? What are you talking about?
There's no platinum here? What?
Didn't Fleetwood Mac just sell 5 million copies?
And I'm like, what are you? You're joking. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast in this kind of music, But long story short, the record, sold 20-some thousand, in a few months.
They probably did backflips.
Wow. They were doing backflips, guys. They didn't know what to do. And that particular song got me, I'm a writer for CSAC, not ASCAP BMI, and I'm with CSAC. And that year, CSAC gave me Record of the Year. So I went to New York and got an award for having the most played jazz song that year. So
look at that.
Cool. Yeah, that was cool.
Wow. Good on you for moving to Nashville.
I just felt like I was supposed to do it, guys. And it's not been a bad place to be. The funny thing is, I was one of the few guys here doing this style of music, of course, especially back then. It ended up kind of working in my favor because I have a studio and I had the other studio downtown before I moved my studio here to the house, and so kind of carved out a niche for me, in regard to anybody else that was interested in doing that kind of music would always call me, hey, can you produce this for me? Can you help me with this? And so it worked in my favor and kind of built my name here in this area for that.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It really does, because it's Nashville. Everybody thinks, when you move there, I don't even think that we had the kind of country, quote, I'm putting in air quotes, country music that we have now. It was probably, it was more traditional?
It was totally traditional country.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, that was, Waylon and Willie and George Jones and Tammy Wynette, all that. That's what was happening here. And I remember a few years after I got here, you'd hear, the big news in town was, oh, Michael Jackson's in town recording at such and such studio, and it was like, what? Michael Jackson's coming to Nashville? So that, that kind of got the ball rolling. And, you'd see these other artists slip into Nashville to do a record, or at least do part of a record.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It was pretty cool. And of course, the other big thing that happened here was Christian music.
Yeah.
And gospel. And this is the capital for that as well. And I ended up working as an engineer and playing on a bunch of gospel records, which was so cool. I couldn't tell you. I didn't really want to work in contemporary Christian music because I just couldn't feel the music, but the gospel music had these cool chords and these jazz things, and I started working with a guy named Ben Tankard. And Ben and I did Yolanda Adams. You guys know that name?
I can't say really. I mean, I may have heard the name, but
Well, she's a Grammy-winning. She's I always used to call her the Whitney Houston of gospel, but this girl can sing. I'm telling you, incredible. So I ended up doing her records and got 4 Grammy nominations for those records that I engineered and played guitar on. And that was that was cool education as well. And I met a whole different group of people, and there's a lot of jazz overtones in that music. A lot of cool things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you put all that together, all the different, the Christian and the gospel and, all that, and everything that it revolves around church-wise and things, that I'm pretty sure is, like, music is Nashville's second biggest industry.
Yeah.
The ministry and all that it encompasses, I believe, is its biggest industry.
It might be now. I know at one time, you guys may not believe this. Actually, music was about fourth or fifth. The insurance industry is massive here.
Wow.
And medical. There's of course, Vanderbilt University Hospital, and research is all here, and then I mean, country music, gospel music, all that. But the music industry is actually, as far as revenue for the city, down the list a little bit.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it. You had the traditional country for a long time, and like you said, Music Row and all that. And I mean, I don't know if people realize it, but wasn't Music Row basically houses that were converted to studios?
Yeah, it was the coolest. It was the coolest time, guys. I mean, you'd go in these studios of these little, 1900 houses, and there was a drum room in the bedroom and a control room in the living room, and they sounded great. I mean, some of Amy Grant's stuff was cut in. She sang in a bathroom of a house, on some of those early hits and stuff. So yeah. A lot of that has changed. I'm telling you. I don't know the last time you've been here, but in the last 5 years, the growth here has been over the top, and unfortunately, they've torn down some of those historic and cool homes and putting up, new stuff. And it's kind of sad to the people who have been here a long time.
There's going to be one house left on Music Row that's an actual, museum studio.
Yeah.
It's going to be all, it's going to be like the Ernest Tubbs record store or something,
Yeah.
So that's crazy. Yeah, so it was all traditional country, and then you had this guy show up named Mutt Lange, and Shania, and then that changed everything, and now it's all bro country.
Yeah, we're better off not to talk about that, probably.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, so we're on the same page there.
Well, I heard, I watched the awards the other day. And I was like, Adam Carolla, who has a podcast, he was commenting. He goes, "This sounds like rap," and it was one of the number one songs. And they were like, "Yeah, it's kind of that way." And he's like, "What happened?" He goes, "There used to be this certain formula." He goes, "What's going on here?" It's a really strange thing how that's morphed into certain things that doesn't. The old guys, they're probably spinning in their graves. I mean, you could probably put an RPM meter on them.
I'll confess to you, when I was a kid, and maybe you guys too, I wasn't a fan. And when Johnny Cash and all that stuff was out, but now I since I've grown up and realized what a great talent that man was, and that music.
God, yeah.
It really was awesome music, and true to the format, unlike what's happening today. I don't think anybody knows what's happening today.
And some incredible players.
Oh, man.
I mean, you listen to some of that old stuff, and I'm going, oh, my God, this is 1950s, and this guy is just killing it. And you're going, it's so weird how that happens, too. It seems like when you're a kid, it doesn't register. And it's got to be some kind of thing that happens in life, because as you get older, look, I never listened to that stuff. I was a metalhead, for Christ's sake.
Right.
And now, now I can listen to it, and I'm like, this is some. I guess because you're listening inward. You're hearing more of the stuff that when you're a kid, it's all more, lights and stuff, your perceptions are so much different. And then as you get older and of course, after you've played all these years, you kind of listen in and you go, who's that guitar player? Like, who's that guy? Because you never heard that name before. And then you find out that it's some dude that did it for 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how your perspective changes. It's like going from Coca-Cola to coffee.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
Kid, now we like coffee, and it's bitter, and it's a whole different thing. So your palate changes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I never appreciated Hee Haw when it was on.
No.
Like I do now. Like the degree of talent that would pick and grin on that show was ridiculous. And I never realized it until later. It's like, oh my God, these guys are just monsters.
Just Buck Owens and Roy Clark, putting those two guys in the same room was like having a powder keg, man. I mean, you could not, the notes that those guys could produce, it's just amazing. And then didn't they like have Chet Atkins on there one day? I was like, okay, well then everybody's going to drop dead,
And Jerry Reed. Oh my God. And Glenn Campbell, remember the Glenn Campbell hour?
Yep.
Glenn was. We used to do this show. Part of this show was a spinoff was called This Week in Music, and Glenn Campbell's name would come up so many times as a studio guitarist. It was unbelievable what that guy recorded on, and we didn't even know this. I mean, we were like, we were reading this stuff, going, "Oh my God!"
Amazing. It is amazing.
Yeah.
So speaking of studio stuff, what's up with Denny? What's going on? How many releases have you put out to this point?
I've got 7 out right now. And,
okay.
What's going on right now is some really exciting news. I just recently signed with Sony on a new record that I have that's a Latin influenced, I call it Latin influenced because I'm obviously not Latin, but I have a passion and love for that music and those rhythms and the sounds of the percussion. And
I do too.
Yeah, and I always wanted to do a record of that. And every one of my records has 1 or 2 or 3 tunes on there that has a Latin thing. And when I get my percussion guys out here and we're cutting percussion, it's just like, I want to be a percussionist so bad. The rhythms I hear them play and, the sound of those drums, it's just so beautiful to me. So I did this record. I've been working on it for a few years, guys, to be honest with you. But it is certainly, to me, the best project I've ever participated in.
Wow.
So,
were you a Santana fan growing up?
Oh yes, and still am. Obviously, you see that the Mesa Boogie, and how I discovered that and that tone. I'm like, I've got to have that tone, and so yeah, I was a Santana fan. And like I said, I still am. And you know what? It's not. I don't know. It's. A great player is a combination of many things to me. It's not just chops and how many notes you can play in 3 measures. It's really how many you don't play and what you say with what you're doing. Players. I've always been attracted to players like Clapton and Santana and Jeff Beck and the guys that can play one note and bring tears to your eyes.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, Brian May. You take a guy like that, and Nuno Betancourt, who has played a lot of notes, but a very funky type kind of guitarist. He once said in an interview that Brian May was a huge influence on him because he taught you when not to play. He really needed to practice it a little bit more, but.
Nuno.
But Brian is like a huge fan of Nuno's, so it's kind of like he's paying. It's a little full circle there, but 100%. You gotta know when not to play.
I teach also at a university here, and I teach my students that when you're playing a melody or playing a lead, it's a conversation. It's like us sitting here talking right now, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You make a statement and you take a breath. You make another statement, you might make a longer statement and you take a breath and make your point. And, you know, and to me, that's people relate to that more than they do somebody playing 30-second notes at 160 beats a minute, you know, for 3 minutes. And
well, we're not all auctioneers.
No, and right, and thank God for that.
Right.
But I respect the guys that have those kind of chops and do that, but it's just not what moves me. Well, it's not what I have to say, and I think that's the beauty of music. Everybody has something different to say.
Yeah.
Right. Thankfully.
I remember Paul Gilbert, who is, you know, he's really calmed down his playing over the years. Mm-hmm. And there was one time when he said, you know, everybody goes, why don't you alternate pick everything? And he goes, do you always talk in consonants or do you put vowels in there? So he looks at, like, you know, the hammer-ons, the pull-offs are more of the vowels. The picking is the consonants. And he's right. Because if you hear a guy that's just picking every note, it kind of gets a little busy in your head, you know, when they're doing the fast stuff, of course. But it's kind of it is kind of like all consonants, you know. It's always like on the attack. There's no fluid sound in there, you know. And but yeah, the thing, you know, I think the speed thing, it was something that we really got. Wouldn't you say like the late 70s and then the 80s, everybody was just, let's see how fast we can do every lick known to man. And then it kind of, when the grunge thing came in, there was no solos.
Right.
And, you know, thank God they came back. That was the
ultimate rebellion.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was like, well, we've had enough Aquanet. Now we're going to save the ozone for a couple years. But you know, now that it's come back, you have some of these bands. And I only know the rock and roll side. I'm not a jazz guy, but you have some of these guys, some of these bands now, like the Greta Van Fleets and a band called The Answer and stuff like that, where they're like rock and roll dudes again. You know, and it's really Smoke Blackberry Smoke. It's like really refreshing because they're not getting paid for every note, you know, and so it's more songwriting, and just like you said, you got to take that breath.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not all about look at my gymnastics capabilities.
No, it is not at all. To me, it's about emotion, and that's what I think. That's what we're all looking for. Everything's based around emotion in our life.
Right. Yeah. It really. I think the music. You know, if you're playing 1,000 notes, I think they more, if I could describe it, they more kind of like bounce off you than actually have time to be absorbed in your soul. You know, it just there's no time to process it.
Yeah.
You know, and you really that's I think the only time you get something that grabs you.
It was like the other night.
Has time to absorb it for a second.
Yeah, it was like the other night. Michael Badio, who couldn't, you know, you can't get much faster than that guy, right? He did that little tribute where he did this tribute to Led Zeppelin, and it was the greatest playing I've ever heard out of that guy. And it was really, I was like, why aren't you doing more of that?
See?
You know, it was like the other stuff was, as he would say, a showman thing. You know, it's more of a visual. He's playing both hands and he's doing all this crazy crossing his hands and stuff. But man, when he was doing these passages that were like, you know, Led Zeppelin-ish, because he can't really do the exact stuff, dude, he was killing it. And I'm like, this guy could have had a whole nother career. You know what I mean? It could have been a whole nother look to his career. Granted, I don't know if it would have been successful, but you see where he is, and you know he's made money, but it's not like he's a household name. You know, it's more of like the guy who can drive the golf ball 500 yards.
Do we have a time for a story? A quick story?
Absolutely.
I was a couple things. I'll make them quick. I was invited to play. I was working with a French guitar company, Lag, for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
They wanted me to play. They had these Master Series, kind of a PRS style guitar, and they wanted me to play at their NAMM booth in L.A. And you guys have both been to L.A. NAMM,
Sure.
I assume. And so, every corner you turn, there's a guy shredding, like what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, there is.
Well, it's proud. So, of course, they asking me to do this, and I'm like, well, I don't do, what's kind of expected, I don't think, And so I was a little, nervous isn't the right word, but a little suspicious whether I should do it or not. But so I went ahead out and did the gig, right? Well, I had more people standing in the aisle, guys, playing what I do and coming up to me going, so nice to hear a melody and hear. Right at that minute, my whole attitude changed. I got all like, not full of myself, but I was all happy then,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, well, baby.
you know who we saw, and you probably know who he is, but we saw Greg Kalk at the Fishman booth.
Yeah, Greg and I are friends.
And Greg's a monster.
Yes,
I mean, not only is he 6'5", but he is a beast on the guitar. And when we were at that Fishman booth, this was a couple years back. You remember, Jeff? They had to have people move because they couldn't get through. It was becoming more of like a safety issue than anything else. Right. And here he is. He's just doing that. That thing that he does, which. Wasn't
it's not a million notes a second.
Not at all.
It's not.
And man, that guy can carry a lot. So yeah, it's definitely refreshing.
It's notes with humor.
Exactly.
with him, it is for sure. He's a great guy.
He's the best, man.
He's awesome.
That's really cool.
Anyway, I have this record coming out, and it's called Mueva tu Cuerpo, which means to move your body. And
nice.
It is it's not. We kind of got a little sidetracked. Probably I did that. I interrupt myself all the time. My wife tells me, but
it's all right, man.
It's not smooth jazz. I'll just put it that way. It's
okay.
That's the other thing I was going to say. It was when I started to tell you that when I got the deal, it was called NAC. And then some of the labels got a hold of it and realized the format was doing well, and they started calling it smooth jazz, which I just really, I hope no one's listening, but I just don't like that title very well. But I get it.
Yeah.
But at any rate, the new record I do have one cut going out to Smooth Jazz Radio off of it, but it's still a Latin and a bit on the edgier side.
Cool.
But the rest of the record is kind of, there's some 4 on the floor, kind of just rocking with a horn section, and it's
nice.
Pretty neat. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Well, if you remember, Scott Henderson did Dog Party. You remember that?
Yeah.
There wasn't a jazz note on that thing. I mean, he didn't want to play one jazz lick on that whole album. And I was like, wow, because I'd seen him live and I was like, man, there was a billion notes at that show. And it was just a free for all at that thing. And when he did that Dog Party album, I was like, oh my God, they must have had to tie him to a chair.
Tape one hand down. Come here, give me those 2 fingers. You're not going to use. So I have like 2 questions, and they kind of almost go together. But what's your rig like today, and do you use the same rig in the studio? And what was your recording process like? How do you record? Do you move air? And did you do anything to like 2-inch tape, or is everything in Pro Tools? So like, give us a final rig and recording situation for Denny.
Okay. Well, I'm sitting here in the studio right now. I've got, I do love analog. I did have a 2-inch tape for a while, and it was sitting there collecting dust, and then they stopped making tape for a short time, and the price went through the roof. And so I sold the machine, but I kept my console. And I have like a 72 input Neotech console. Yeah, it's a big one, and it's sitting here, and then so I run that and I don't run Pro Tools. I actually run Digital Performer. Okay. I started on Performer so many years ago, guys, when we were doing those Yolanda Adams records, and when it was just MIDI only, and I just kind of evolved with that. But I can do anything on that anybody else can do on Pro Tools, and in the game it all sounds the same. In fact, I mix for other people, and they'll bring me Pro Tools files, and I can, they're converted. All I need is a WAV file, load it in.
Okay.
So I've got kind of the mixture. I don't mix in the box. I run back through my console, so I get that big analog sound.
Awesome.
And then through that, I come back to an SSL compressor, the 2-bus compressor. And then I mix to a Tascam machine that is DSD. Do you know what that is?
No.
That is direct stream digital. And you actually mix to a DVD on there. And the files are massive. It's like 400 megabyte files when you get a 4-minute song done. It's massive. 100
megs a minute.
Wow.
Yeah. And it sounds so wonderful. It's like 3-dimensional almost coming out of the speakers. The clarity and the separation is just amazing.
Now does it take? Does it put it in the what is it, 96K now instead of 44K on the wave? Is it doing that? Okay.
It does, but it's actually, here's the funny thing. DSD is actually a 1-bit. It's not like 24-bit. 16-bit. It's 1-bit floating, so it floats. And I can't really explain it technically, but all I know is it sounds amazing, and that's what I do. And so, like on the new record, we're going to release 16-bit, of course, to a CD, and then it'll go to streaming and MP3s and all that business. But then we're doing also 24-bit HD, and then we're also doing DSD releases, because there's hi-fi buffs out there that they pay like big bucks per track for that stuff, so they can hear it as pure as they can hear it. And it's the closest sound, guys, to what analog was, but the definition is even better. You just have to hear. It's it. If you get a chance, go someplace and listen to it. It's amazing.
I have the Allman Brothers the live album.
Fillmore?
The Fillmore, in that format, they have to put it on Blu-ray. It will not play on a standard CD.
Yeah.
Because it's like 1.7 gigs per recording. And so I can't listen to it in my car because I don't have that type of player. But I play it through my surround sound. And what's weird, this recording was done, God, only the early 70s, right?
Right.
You can hear people talking in the audience in between the songs. And I mean, if you really listen closely, you can hear the conversation that they're having. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Because the clarity, it just pulls everything forward.
But it's just amazing to me that the initial
recording was that good. Yeah.
Was that good.
Well, they probably were using very good condenser mics around that stage and probably getting a feed off of the board and everything. Sure. So it was pulling. It's really crazy. I mean, when I put that thing in, I have the digital copy on my iPhone and I listen to it in the car. It's like 2 different recordings. I mean, like they didn't even okay, this is a different day. And it's like, no, it's the same exact recordings. It's just how much, lossless. It's everything. It's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm so anal about the way things sound. I spend way too much time on it probably, but everybody they can't believe how the records sound. I mean, a lot of the records I was doing, I don't know about now, but they were using them in hi-fi stores and music stores to demo systems even,
nice.
And I was honored to hear that. I had no idea. Some guys told us. I was over at such and such a store, and they were, this $40,000 system, they're playing your records. And I went, what?
Nice.
Well, our good friend Jason Sudeikis, his last album, he did that, and he sent us the copies over, if you remember correct. Jeff, I don't know. Did you get that? He sent it to me in a Dropbox. But my God, was that unbelievable. I mean, and, he's a jazz guy, and it was just, first off, the files took forever to get down. Because, I mean, it's like downloading a DVD, but it was just the clarity. I was like, God almighty. And you know how he does his recording. He does it with 2 other guys on the other side of the planet, and
Right.
They never even see each other, but it was still that deep. It had that much depth in it.
Wow.
It's definitely cool. And as technology moves forward, you're probably going to be able to see more of that because, honestly, hard drives are getting cheaper. And if you can adapt it to some player, whether it be a disc or it be some kind of digital, player, there's no reason why we shouldn't,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and in regard to cutting, Jeff, if is that where you're ready to go? I'll be glad to tell you about my gear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Moving air, absolutely. That's to me the only way to do it. I've got a. I guess I'll start with the cabinet I'm running. It's a dual 12. Believe it or not, I'm running Jensen Neo Tornadoes in it. And
wow.
It's a ported cabinet. They're 100-watt speakers, and I've never heard anything sound as clear and awesome as these speakers. Especially if it works for me. I'll just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just the name alone is cool.
I've got VVT. You guys know our friend Jim Hill. I've got 2 of the X40s, which I absolutely love those amps. They're all hand-wired up there in Maryland and sound wonderful, kind of that D-style amp. And for recording, I've used that, and live I use that. Everything that I'm telling you I have here, I use both places except for one amp that I'd love to tell you about. If we have time, I really would love to tell you about this.
Sure.
We have time.
Jeff, I'm pretty good friends. I don't want to be a name dropper, but with Paul.
Sure.
And for your listeners, it's Paul Reed Smith. And I heard Paul playing on YouTube one night. He was sitting in with Santana for a benefit concert that they were doing up there. And I'd never heard this kind of tone out of him, right? So I see him a couple months later at an artist party for the holidays, and I said, "What were you playing through at that benefit?" And he just got that little boy grin of his and said, "You liked it, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, I liked it." And he says, "You want one?" I said, "Yeah, I want one." He said, "All right," and he told me what it was, and it was the first time he'd built this type of amp, and it is a D-style amp. I've been kind of bugging him for years about that because he loves his Marshalls.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Marshalls too, but I really love the Dumble sound,
Right.
And so he built the thing, and this is an unbelievable story, and I almost feel weird telling you, but it is unbelievable, guys. So that was like 3 months. It was like October I saw him, and on Christmas Eve I sent him a text and wished him Merry Christmas. Well, he calls me Christmas Eve, and he goes, "I've got your amp done." I said, "Oh, okay." He says, "You'll get it, after the first of the year, blah, blah, blah." He says, "I'm sending you serial number 1. It's the prototype of this amp."
Wow.
And so I've got the prototype of the amp sitting here in front of me, and this is the amp that has evolved into the John Mayer.
Into the Mayer, I figured it was.
Yep. It sure is. So I've got actually 2 of them sitting here. I've got a 100-watt and a 50-watter, and I won't take the 50-watter out of the house. I had him build another one because I said I want to be able to use the amp, and I don't want to take this one out. So I bought a 100-watter from him, and so I have 2 of those, and all of those amps, including the VVT, they're all over this Latin record. I mean, it's high gain, screaming, and beautiful tones. It really is.
Nice.
Did you send John a tweet and say, "We know you feel special because you own like 40 real Dumbles, but I got your prototype, and you're not getting it."
Well, if I ever get the chance to meet him, he will know that. If he doesn't, I know Paul never told him. I knew when John was coming here to play a few months back, I had sent an email up to Beverly up there, and I said, "Hey, let John know that he's welcome to come out here and hear this amp if he wants to." I promise I won't tell anybody he's coming and all that stuff. Keep it very on the DL. But But anyway, so guitar-wise, I'm playing, of course, I've got quite a few PRSs here, all have different voices, every one of them. And they've all made appearances on this new record. And then I just acquired, are you guys hip to a guy named Charles Whitfield?
Why does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I've heard the name.
I've heard it too.
I don't know that I've come across
all
this
right,
stuff.
I'm pulling it up.
I've definitely
Hold
heard the name. Okay.
Yeah, it's Whitfill, Whitfield Guitars.
Okay.
And he's a builder up in Kentucky, up close to Lexington, up in that area. And I ended up meeting Charles at some trade shows and stuff, and he does the relic thing, right? And when those came out, I wasn't really a huge fan of them, but I went over and ended up at his booth at NAMM and played his guitars and went, wow, this, I'm not even a Strat guy, and this guitar plays and sounds great. So long story short, this has been going on for a few years, and we've developed a good friendship as well. So, but I now have one of his Strats here, and I'm telling you guys, man,
they're gorgeous.
He's building for Billy Gibbons and Joe Walsh and Vince Gill, Warren Haynes. So all these guys have discovered these guitars. This little builder up in Kentucky, and I'm telling you, these guitars are ridiculous.
Yeah, they look very nice. They have the relic. I mean, they're reliced out, but they look like.
But they look right, I'm sure.
Yeah,
they look right.
And on top of that, it probably is built very much, because I'm looking at the saddles and everything. Everything looks like it's very down to the just everything is traditional. You're not getting anything that isn't period correct.
Right. And he actually cuts his own bodies out of a block. He's not using pre-cut bodies or anything. So everything is done by hand. And,
nice.
The guitar feels like you're picking up a 62 that's been played every day of its life. It's just
awesome.
Really, really amazing, and amazing pickups. But something cool really happened the other day. I connected him with Paul, because Paul was up in Lexington at a guitar store doing an event, and Charles actually went up there, and they got to meet, and that was a neat day for both of them, I think. So
nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Look at that.
So
look at you networking like that.
Well, Jeff, I like to connect people. If they're good people, I enjoy it. I don't do it to try to get anything. I really don't care about that. I just think, hey, you should know this guy, and
sure.
And Paul's really a good mentor. I've seen him mentor young guitar builders and change their life. It's really cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool.
Well, maybe they could come out with the relic PRS, and this guy looks like he could do a great job for that. So
he knows how to do it. I'm telling you, he really does. I had him do. He said, "I'll do a real light relic for you," because he says, "I know you don't like them all worn off and everything." So he did this real cool kind of marbleized cracking on it. It looks awesome. It's a white.
Nice. Nice. I mean, if they're done right, they can look absolutely beautiful and look real. And then some of the other stuff that not only guys but companies come out with, it's like you look at it, you go, real? You got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
you just got to be kidding. It looks
run over
so
with your truck.
phony. It just looks so phony.
Well, you know what's amazing on some of these, that when they're done right, is the checking in the paint, like the finish.
Mm-hmm.
When you see that, I'm like, how the hell they do that? And I know that they're like really, they're doing crazy stuff to get it to, the lacquer to dry real quick and shrink and to crack. But it's like you look at the original and then you look at another one, you go, my God, they got it to check just the same way. It's pretty neat.
It's amazing, and what they do to the hardware too. It's, pretty crazy how they age that. So. But anyway, that's some of my toys. I've got some great pedal boards here too, and some favorite pedals I like to use. And back in the day, I was using a Mesa Boogie 290 power amp. You remember those things?
Sure.
It was a boat anchor.
Yeah.
Quite a few of them came across my bench over the years.
Woo! So I had that with the Triaxis, and then I'd carry two EV12Ls in closed back cabinets, and it'd kill you to move the stuff around. But it sounded great. Man, it sounded great.
Those things not only were heavy, but when you had to retube them, you were taking out a loan.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then, you're using rack effects then. But and I never was a huge pedal guy, but lately now I've kind of become addicted.
There's so much out there that, it's overwhelming. And, if you can't find something that you like in a pedal nowadays, there's something wrong.
There is something wrong.
Absolutely.
I just lately connected with Cusack. You guys know the Cusack? Yeah. And man, they built some cool stuff. I've got the Tappa delay here, and it's wonderful. They've got a new reverb coming too that I've heard a little sample of. I can't wait to try that. And of course, we know Creation Audio Labs, Jeff. I love their the Mark IV and the Holy Fire. I love those pedals too. So they're real open and clean sounding, quiet.
Cool.
I remember back in the day, you get that. I had one of the first pedals I ever had was, of course, the Big Muff. Mm-hmm. I had a Distortion Plus, the standard stuff. And then I got, and the Big Muff, you turn it on, it sounded like you were at the ocean. Distortion Plus, same kind of thing. But the Boss Flanger, the first run of the Boss Flanger, you turn that thing on and everybody just turn around and look at you because it literally sounded like the ocean coming in, And
you guys remember the Mutron pedals, the phasers that had the power cord connected to it, and you had to call Cartage to move it for you.
Absolutely.
That was a big pedal, guys.
Rock switches on them.
Yeah. Didn't it say balls for one of the? Didn't it say balls for one of the phaser?
One of the settings.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, my buddy Brian had one.
Oh my God.
Balls.
Well, and now they're probably $1,000.
Yeah.
And there's so much stuff out there that can do that for a tenth of the price and a tenth of the real estate. But it is what it is. Everybody wants what used to be.
Have you checked out the Hot Tone Company? That's another one I've been working with. And
no.
Oh, they're doing some neat things too. These pedals, really, go online there and look at Hot Tone. The pedals are about the size of a matchbox almost. A box of matches, and it's amazing the sound they get out of those things. And they've got this.
Are they the pedals that are preset?
No.
Like they have no controls on. They're preset. You just hit the button. That's it.
There's controls. Okay. They've got a little tape echo thing, and there's minimal controls because they're so small. Mm-hmm. But they do have this other thing called X Stomp, which is just a generic-looking pedal, but it comes with a software app for your iPhone, and you can Bluetooth in anything you can imagine, guys. They model all these Marshall amps and vintage pedals and all this stuff, and you can Bluetooth it in there. So the pedal's like a chameleon. It becomes whatever you need,
Wow.
It's pretty wild, and they sound good.
So when you step on it and it smashes into 1,000 pieces, I've never seen anything so small in my life. This guy is holding two in his hand. It looks like Photoshop.
No, it's real. It's real. I'll see if I can get you guys one sent there to check out. I mean, they're awesome little pedals. They really are. You can put 8 pedals on a little flyboard you can put in your back pocket just about, and you're ready to go.
That's crazy.
That is insane, man.
I just love it. I love it because it's like it's the ultimate FU to the airlines. They don't want you bringing instruments anymore. They're having this whole thing in England, and they're all it's this whole thing. So it's like, oh no, hey, you know what? I'm going to bring a pedal board with 30 pedals.
You know what? I fly occasionally, and I have put together a small board that they sent me, and I had everything I needed on it, and I put it in my backpack and carried it on.
Sure.
Nice.
Sure.
I mean, that's what all this technology is, in my opinion, best suited for. That, you know, the fractal stuff, all that kind of, it's for fly dates, man.
And And speaking of which, Jeff, I wanted to tell you, not to cut you off, but I wanted to tell you, our good friend, Greg Mara, he called me the other day and he said, I want you to tell Jeff something. I said, okay. He goes, I got rid of my Axe effects. I was like, what? And he goes, got rid of it. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah, when I was at NAMM, he goes, the boss guy, or no, I'm sorry, the Dallas, Texas guitar show, or the Dallas guitar show.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe I should speak in English and then we'll be okay. It's nothing like being on an audio podcast and not being able to talk.
I'm sure he was just at the Dallas Guitar Show.
He was at the Dallas Guitar Show, yes.
Yeah.
And the guys from Boss said, you got to come down and check out the new GT1000. So he was a little skeptical, but he went down, he tried it out. He said right out of the box, the presets are dead on. And he said now that's his whole thing. That's his new stuff. And now he can do his fly dates because it fits right in his suitcase. It's got an expression pedal. It's got you can do the amp modeling. You can do just the effects. You can make it in Stompbox mode. You can do all these weird things with it. And they're using their own new technology now to kind of get around some of the shortcomings that some of these modeling things have done. And it's now they're getting more of the speaker reactance into the signal to give it more of a natural tone. And he said, you know what? He goes, now I don't have to worry about my backline. He goes, I've got in-ears. If I get there and they've got crap, he goes, I'll run it right through the board. He goes, but if they have an amp, there's a whole amp setting on there too. So he goes, I can move air or I can do it out front. And he goes, I can get it, I can get what I need to get to be able to do the gig. Because he said, trying to send his stuff, is ridiculous. I mean, it costs money.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing. I mean, these guys just came out with this pedal. I tried it out at Winter NAMM. They just sent one to me. That's it's very small. It's probably there in front of you on the computer, called the Mojo Tone or Mojo something. I should know that.
Mojo Attack.
That's it. Mojo Attack, and it's got 2 channels, A and B.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
It's got a digital reverb and it's got a gain boost built in it, and it's XLR out.
Look at that
with a
thing.
speaker sim, so you can go straight to the board. It's 75 watts if you want to push air with a cabinet, and wow. It sounds
this
pretty
thing
good.
Is crazy.
Is it going to replace my PRS or your Marshall or Dumble? No, but it certainly will get you through and sounds pretty great. So
look at that.
I mean, something like that probably should be in everybody's tool bag as a backup.
Yeah,
yeah, because eventually something, an amp's going to go down, and I always tell people, carry a backup, even if it's like back in the day, the oval crate power blocks that they used to make.
Right.
They kind of sounded like almost like a JCM 800. It's like you can put that thing anywhere, just throw it anywhere, have it with you, just keep it with you because one day you're going to need it.
Well, this is it, Jeff. This is that cool. With all the cool stuff. It's got an XLR, so you obviously can go directly to the board. And my favorite feature on it is Channel B because they call it Heart Attack.
Yeah,
Heart Attack.
The names are always good.
Sounds pretty good. I'm going to try to do a little demo for them eventually. Cool.
Well, speaking of fly dates and everything, where are you touring anywhere, playing anywhere? Where can anybody see you, and where can they get your material?
It's kind of everywhere: iTunes, Amazon.
Okay.
The website we're getting ready to redo, but the website is Jiosa.com. It's JIOSA.com.
Right.
As far as touring goes, we're working all that right now to support this new record. I'm going to Wichita, and you guys going to be up at the Sweetwater Gear Fest?
No.
Oh, too bad.
I wish I really do want to get there one of these days. It's supposed to be a phenomenal place.
So much fun, guys. It's like you died and gone to fun heaven for music. I mean, everything is there. There's, I played the All-Star Jam last year with, Robin Ford was there, and
damn,
Greg was there,
huh.
Koch, and Eric Johnson. It was quite a night. I'll tell you, it was.
Is that in Wichita? I don't know where it is.
No, that one's in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's
okay.
Sweetwater is. So you just have a blast, and Sweetwater, they just do it right, you know. But so I'm doing that. June's going to be busy, and I'll be coming up your way for the PRS experience.
Oh, nice. They're going to have it?
They're having it this year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I knew that it was like, it wasn't, what was it? I forget how they had it, right? Some fans put it together, right? Or at the hotels or something? Didn't they do that?
Well, that was a couple few years ago.
Okay.
And I know there was a year they didn't do it. I can't remember if that was last year or the year before, but I had heard that it was actually happening again this year. I'll have to check the calendar and see if there's open time. I've just been playing so much lately. It's crazy.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Get there. Now, you know there's no people train that leaves Wichita, right?
Say that again?
There's no people train that leaves Wichita.
No people train.
Did you ever see the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles?
Oh, yes, of course.
And John Candy and Steve Martin are trying to go, and he goes, there's no people train leaves Wichita.
I love that movie, yes.
That's hilarious.
This is what I remember.
That's right. Well, that's okay. That's good. It's a valid reference.
Yeah. Hey, guess what? We're going to keep that website link for your website on our site with your episode in
perpetuity.
That's right. Which means forever.
Fantastic. Well, I know that term. It was in the contract I signed once.
We own you in perpetuity.
But the new record will be out July 27th.
Awesome.
Nueva Cuerpo. So everybody, please check it out. I hope it's going to be huge for me.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Man. I hope so. And I do love Latin and Latin rhythms, and I love I've loved Carlos, but even more traditional Latin rhythms than that. So I'm sure it's going to be great, man. I can't wait to hear it.
Well, I can't say that it's really real traditional, Jeff, but it's still a great record. I mean, it's just the sound of that, and there's some Cuban rhythms in there. And by the way, can I say one more thing?
Sure. Yeah.
The guys playing on it it's all my band. The guys that play live with me. I wanted to do that and not bring in studio guys because we just work off of each other so well, and they're all such masterful, world-class players, just great players. But there's 2 or 3 percussionists that show up on it, and like I said, the horn section, it's Holly Ferris that played with James Brown for 25 years, trumpet, and Roy Agee on trombone was with Prince. And then Glenn Karuba's doing most of the percussion. He's played with just about everybody, and they're just all great. Chester Thompson's on one track from Genesis on drums, and so it's a good record.
Wow, I don't see how it couldn't be. Starting off because I know you're playing, so it's
you're fine. Thank you, Jeff.
It starts from great and probably goes someplace from there.
Oh, there you go.
So,
that's
Denny. Thank you so very much for taking the time, man. I know, we had this set up before and it didn't happen, but this was awesome. Thank you so very much. And man, best of luck with the new record. I hope it just knocks doors down. And I hope to be able to get to see you when you're up at PRS at the Experience. And if and when you do touring, safe travels, my friend.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope to do it again with you.
And do me a favor, when you do drop this album, let me know. We'll talk about it on the show.
We will send you a copy.
How about that?
If you'd like, and I'd be happy to come back for a short excerpt if you want to. You just let me know. This has been so much fun.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
Denny, thank you so very much, man. It's been fun on our end too. And have a great evening, and all the best to you, man.
All right. You too, guys.
All right.
Take care. Thanks. And there you have the story.
How about that?
Yeah.
I tell you what.
He's a great guy. I met him years ago. He's such a great guy.
There was a couple things I wanted to ask him, like, did they build the house around the mixing board that had 72 inputs?
I love that.
And is there another wing put on his house for all the equipment he doesn't get rid of?
Right. That is so cool.
It is the most awesome thing. And I was not, if anybody hears me say, well, I saw you for half an hour trying to get the paper out of the copier, that's not a real story. It was just me being jerky. That's all. I'm sure he knows how to work a copy machine.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if he can run all that technology, he can sure.
I think he can work a
copier. I'm sure. But, yeah,
it's called comedic humor, right? There you go.
Right, absolutely.
God dang it, man! I can't speak today. Yeah, it's great. I just real quick, I wanted to circle back around. Greg has gotten rid of the Axe effects, brother. How about that? And he said, he's got his pink taco. That's his main. Yes. That's his main head that he uses. That's the Friedman. But he said this floorboard thing is just, it's the piece. He goes, I can play anywhere now and I don't have to worry about, whatever they give me. Mm-hmm. So that's a beautiful thing. And well,
like I said, those are great applications for that.
Absolutely.
If you want to go somewhere and know that you're going to sound the best that you can possibly sound, you go with the best sounding piece of gear that you can take with you, and it's got your presets and everything else in it. Mm-hmm. It makes for a better gig because you're more comfortable, more relaxed. Things are sounding the way you want them to sound. I totally get that. I don't think I'll ever stop moving air though.
And that's true.
I hope I won't have to. I don't think I will because I don't foresee myself in situations
where you wouldn't be able to. Yeah.
Where I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Now, just a little bit of a piece on this thing that kind of sets it apart from the other ones out there. Mm-hmm. So it actually can talk to your device, your phone, through USB. Through Bluetooth. So he can actually upload the entire presets to his phone. So say he goes to a gig and he can't take the pedal board for some reason, but they can supply him with the pedal board. He can then just dump all of his presets right to the thing from his phone. I mean,
it's keyboards have been like that for years. You walk in with
a USB stick.
Used to be with a little floppy and then a USB.
Yep.
Soundboards are the same way now. All the digital boards.
So
guys go in.
They finally got it right, huh?
I guess.
I mean, that's kind of a cool thing because if you're in a pinch and you don't have it or it breaks and there's a music store down the street, you can actually use another one, get all your sounds just like that. So
no, and that's a wonderful thing, and that's the way technology should be used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
if you can do that, why not? It just makes the gig the best it can be.
I always say, and for some reason, they always get a little bit of a rub. People go, "Oh, you got Boss effects," and it's like, I think they invented effects. I'm not 100% sure, but they were like at the beginning with everybody else, and it's Roland. They have drum sets now that sound like the best drum sets you've ever heard, and they're not, and it's kind of weird, and I'm not big on that, but it serves a purpose, right? So they've kind of done this thing, and they kind of branch out on their own. They're not trying to be like everybody. So I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool thing. And Greg is he's no slouch.
Yeah,
he knows a couple notes. I've watched him.
There you go.
Yeah,
I think he knows all of them. Well, there you go.
I think he told me one day he could play A in 8 different positions, and I went, well, that beats me. I was like, there's more than 3?
There's more than 3, but 8? Wow.
I don't know. It was something crazy, and I said, well, that's you. Okay. I'm good with it.
End this, and we're going to end this. And I'm going to go pick up a guitar and try to find 8 positions for an 8 chord.
There you go.
There you go.
So until next time, my friend.
I'll still be working on trying to find 8 positions for an 8 chord.
Well, I'll never get it. I'm Mick Marcelino, and you're...
That's right. I'm hard at work, Jeff Bober.
And we're always saying...
Onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmpsandAxes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.